The other thing that, one of my friends and colleagues always, is Cherry Reyes here? The wife of Chot? No? Chot, my friend and colleague, always says in his speech that, he's been happily married. Cherry is happy and he's married. This wise old English guy was saying, the difference between men and women. Men are born as babies. They grow up to be 16 years old and they stay 16. While women are born in their 40s and stay there. And the difference between 40 and 16 is God's joke, right? And hopefully today would be able to at least share some insights in terms of how to manage God's joke. As I said, we don't claim to be an expert. We are still working on it. Every day is both a learning and a means of overcoming challenges. And I guess it's the first point in this talk, which is basically relationship such as ours, as Chiki would say. I guess that the main question in the room is, could a couple with two high-powered careers, very busy, actually stay married? And I think that is a provoking thought, and so far so good, right? But it requires work, and every day is a work in progress. Do not think that, by setting an objective, an ambition, things will fall into place. You have to be willing to work at it.
Yeah, so actually, life has really been unpredictable for us. And I think pretty much that's the story of Noel and my life, where as we developed our relationship together and our family, actually you never know what life throws at you. And that, I think, is something that you have to prepare for, because it is very much work in progress. You have to be, constantly aware of what's happening and adapt to that situation.
I mean, to complicate things, we've actually lived in different countries. Moving kids, moving ourselves, saying goodbye is always not easy. In fact, sometimes when we move homes, we actually have to unpack a box that was supposed to be unpacked when we came back from one country, which was supposed to be unpacked before that. So it's that kind of life we're having.
No, we don't even open the box.
We don't even
it's
open the box.
It's just packed
right?
into another box. Okay.
And I think the whole point is that you need to improvise. I think the secret to life is learning to improvise. Being flexible at times, knowing when to be rigid and knowing to be flexible. I guess one of the stories was when we were supposed to leave for China, a career-defining move when I was told that I was going to be appointed marketing director for the Unilever toothpaste company, which is the biggest toothpaste company in the world. And it was such a big career break, but it would affect our family because we need to uproot. We had small children then, and you know what to do. And to complicate matters, to make matters worse, was that a couple of months prior, my father was diagnosed with a terminal illness. So what do you do? Do you stay and give up the chance for that big opportunity, care for your father, see him in his last days? Or do you actually continue with life because, as I said, it was sort of a big career move? And those things you're faced with every day. And you would have to depend on your partner a lot in terms of deciding or making the right call. Obviously, talking about it with Gina, talking to the family, and of course, talking to my dad, who was still then, my mom, we decided to leave for China because the whole point is you should not stop life. Things happen, but you must pursue life to the fullest. That's a reality. Things happen. And as chances would have it, my father passed away a week before we were supposed to leave in China. So it's both a bittersweet moment for us. But again, with the support of your spouse during that difficult time, moving your family, things came out well.
I think being in another country and being far away from the comforts of your community is just one of the challenges that life throws at you. In the case of Ines, for example, earlier, it was about moving from corporate to, entrepreneurship. So you can just imagine all those comforts that you don't have, and just really uprooting yourself I think, to be honest, our relationship even stronger, because you can use that time of difficulty and discomfort to actually break yourself apart from each other, or you could use that to really deepen and strengthen your relationship. Equally, when you're away from your usual comfort zone, when you as a couple fight, and of course in any marriage, there's always arguments and sometimes it does get very heated, being elsewhere is really quite difficult, right? Because you can't just go out of your house and run to your parents or run to your best friend. In Shanghai, it was cold and very few people that you can really talk to.
And it's funny because Gina talked about who you go to. One of my best friends in Shanghai was a Dutch guy. He was going through his divorce, and we were the guy that he went to. Spent a lot of time in the house, and we helped him out. But I think it's worth mentioning that when you do plan your life, you need to look at the support systems that you have. And we're lucky to have a support system called the nannies. We had a couple of nannies, and we'll get to that later because it's all connected. That's been with Gina's family for quite some time. Gina's family means her folks, her sister, and then ourselves. That allowed myself and Gina careers in Unilever in another country. And but the thing is, these two nannies are not really your sophisticated nannies who travel very well. They're actually quite timid and shy. In fact, I kept telling Gina, we could actually write a book on living abroad and surviving. We had to renew their visas every 6 months. And China being a communist country, it's very nice at that time to go through immigration. And every time the two nannies would go there, I remember saying an Our Father, a Hail Mary, and a Glory Be, just to ensure that they get through. Because if one of them or both of them couldn't get through, then it sort of just throws, all the plans out the window. Okay.
Yeah. So I think in the end, it's really about making the conditions work for you in life as your family, own personal situation actually evolves. You really have to evolve with it. And during that evolution of yourself and your partnership, your priorities will change in as much as probably your spouse's situation would change or your own career situation would change. And it's all about adapting to that. I had an opportunity to get to meet Benjamin Zander at his house in Boston. He was actually a conductor that taught about leadership. Anyway, more about that at another time. But basically, he was truly inspiring. And one of the things that I learned from him, and this was way back in 2002, was to say there's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing. And since then, I've lived through that mantra. Because indeed, the weather is the weather and you can't change it. But once it's defined, it's about making the conditions work for you in the best way that you can. And I think, again, as a couple and as a partnership, that's what we've tried to work at together.
You were supposed to say that it's good to have the same values.
Okay.
Gina and I you can't find two people who are more different from each other. When we were preparing for this speech, normally within 2 days I want to be relaxed, but Gina really wants to be strict to the last minute, right? That's why when Chiki invited us, I go, I hope this is not a means for us to actually get each other's nerve. But the point is, if you have the same values, that's what's going to hold you together. You're going to all the petty things in life, all the things that irritate you, all the things that sort of get to you. But so long as you go back to the values that you hold dearly, and it happens to be the same, and it happens to be a shared value, you're going to be okay. And we don't have to go through the values. I'm sure you do have your own values, but the values are actually what keeps couples and people together. Which brings us to the next point, and I'm happy that it was sort of covered in Mrs. Reyes' speech. We'd like to call it as there is only one driver, right? In any situation given us, there has to be one person to make the decision, right? You can't have two people making a decision because then it doesn't work that way. And we have a few examples. For example, given that I think Chiki mentioned that we both were in Unilever, when planning a career in Unilever, that especially an international career when you have to work outside, because they first have to look for one job. right? They asked the couple, who's the lead career? And of course, being both in pursuit of a great career, it would not be easy to answer that. But you have to. And we said, okay, I'm the lead career. Not because I'm better, but probably because I'm older than Gina, perhaps more established. And I said, I'm the lead career. You go to a country, look for a great job that's great for our progression. And then afterwards, because Gina was also a valued talent in the company, they made sure that once the first job, which is mine, was chosen, they chose a job that's worth Gina's capability and worth her career progression. And this is true. When we were in China, I was a marketing director of one of the joint ventures. Gina was with the holding company managing mass markets, looking at how to serve the needs of the 800 million Chinese who actually are very poor, but Unilever wants to reach. I was in Indonesia, where I was doing a regional global job servicing Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Gina was running the biggest category in the local company, Unilever Indonesia, which if you've been there, it's like the San Miguel of that country. I mean, it is the biggest fast-moving consumer goods company there. When I was chairman and CEO of Malaysia and Singapore, Gina's boss said, since she was already doing a global regional job, she goes, why don't you take your job with you and then set up office in Malaysia and continue doing your job?
Just in that in our situation, we have an agreement that Noel is the lead career, but equally, I have a number of examples where I have a lot of women colleagues, and again, all different nationalities, where the woman is the lead career, and their husbands actually follow them, and their husbands are equally established. But what they do is that the husband uproots another country, or perhaps a husband is an entrepreneur. But again, I think it is that acceptance between the couple and really having that honesty to talk to each other, who is the lead career? And that lead career can change from one time to the other. And that really minimizes, I guess, the conflict, and in fact brings about a lot of peace. Because once that's not established, in a way, although you'd say you don't want to compete with your husband, in a way, if your way doesn't get, you don't get your way, that's when the conflict happens. And I think that's what we've tried to avoid by establishing it first and foremost. Having said that, it doesn't mean that if you're not in the driver's seat, that you actually are, having less of an opportunity. In fact, similar to what I've said earlier, it's about making the conditions work for you. And indeed, how do you do that? You make yourself as valuable an individual, whether in a career or whether in setting up your own business, such that regardless of the situation that your brings you or takes you, you can actually have that opportunity. And Noel already mentioned that. I think I would have had the flexibility to just do the kinds of jobs that I do at an agile basis, looking after Asia and just living at any country that I want, if I didn't work at improving myself and being the best I can be.
I think people are always in search of peace, right? And I always say the best way to achieve peace is to take a decision, right? Because once you've made a decision, you're at peace. And in most families, in most couples, decision making is difficult because, there are different voices. In a couple's case, there's two voices. And that's why it's important that there is only one driver. Make the call and then work at it. Once you've made the call, you will be at peace. But it's only not career. And in different cases, different cars, there's a different driver. For our children's education, Gina is a driver. But of course, we consult each other, but in the end, she takes the call. For the household, I'm the driver. No, it's Gina's the driver. So long as Gina gives me my bar in the house. Gina's the driver for the household. For investments, I'm the driver. So again, it's very important to establish who the driver is. And then once the driver makes the call, you're at peace. And then you just have to work at it, and make it work, and make it succeed.
Exactly. I guess I have to say, Noel and I are really very completely different individuals. So one clear example that
I'm a
having
man and you're a woman. So.
Yes, okay, fine. But in terms of having just one driver, a clear example is even how we manage trips and holidays. So of course, when you're women like yourselves, you can actually already plan the holiday yourself and decide by yourself. But if your husband isn't happy, then that's not the right holiday or the perfect holiday, right? But I think what we've tried to work at is indeed have that balance and agree from the beginning, okay, for the holidays, you take the decision. So I just broadly get agreement in terms of what we're going to do, but I literally plan everything. Because if he and I, being so different, would plan the holidays together, it would actually be a disaster. I remember, because I'm very OC and I really take care of everything from the hotel to the trips and to everything, and the flights.
I'm about enjoying life.
Okay, whatever. So I've had to actually plan everything and make sure that everything is done, right? But then I have to leave at least 2 days where literally we're not doing anything. And those are the Noel days, where literally we could just, enjoy the city and do things the way he wants. But basically, it's about that. I think in the end, it's about making sure that we plan together. But with me doing most of the planning, so long as I get my way. So the important thing is establishing that up front. Just a funny example. As I said, I plan everything and I bring everything, right? So usually when we travel, I carry this really big camera. So I carry
She's
an
a
SLR.
driver for the photographs.
Okay, whatever. So I carry an SLR and I'm the one who always takes photos.
It's a big one. It's a big
Yeah,
SLR.
it's really big. So anyway, one birthday of mine goes, "Oh, Gina, I've realized how you keep carrying this camera when we travel. And, I enjoy all the photos and everything, but I really want to make a change. And I don't want you to be carrying, such a heavy, camera. So I'm going to make a change." I said, "Okay, what is it?" "I'm giving you a smaller camera." Again, just to say what the solution between men and different, so absolutely different. Yeah. Men and women are so different.
The third point we want to make, because we've sort of said everything is work in progress. There should only be one driver. But for that to work, and we don't mean this any, you have to make yourself super individuals. Because to be truly a great couple, you as separate beings have to actually work at it into making yourself better and better every day. I used to tell my team, you have to develop 5 intelligence. There's IQ, which is really the ability to understand things, comprehend things. There's EQ, there's PQ, which is basically the physicality to be able to do things. It requires physical strength and wellness to run a business, to run a corporation, to run an international organization. There's EQ. The world does not revolve around you, or people around you. There's SQ, spiritual quotient, which is basically where do you derive your strength? At your most difficult state, what is it that gives you strength? And it's different, could be different for anybody. It could be God, it could be country, it could be family. And there's no right or wrong answer, but at the most difficult state, where do you derive the strength? That's S, spiritual quotient. The individuals within the couple should strive to actually every day to make yourself super or better individuals.
Yeah, I think that's really absolutely important. And again, as a woman, I think I can absolutely relate where we as women really serve everyone around us, our parents, our kids, our families, even friends, and so many people rely on us. And as a result, sometimes what tends to happen is that we neglect ourselves, when in fact the one that we have to look after the most is ourselves. And I think we tend to neglect that. So again, I've only realized this maybe in just a decade, but what I've tried to do then is try to invest in myself more and more so that I have the energy to bring and give to others. I call it feeding my soul. And there's actually 2 parts to it. I think firstly, and again related to feeding the soul, is to try to just make yourself the best that you can be. Whether it be at work, and it's still about, no matter where you are in the organization or whatever you've done, there's always something that you can do to actually stretch yourself and be better. And I see that every day, and the reason why I stay and do what I do in the corporate world is that I learn every day. Whether it be a new way in terms of communicating and touching lives of people in the Philippines, or whether it's a new way of growing new talent or young people, or whether it's a new way of just really communicating to people through digital. A lot of things that you could do to really better yourself. One of the most significant leadership experiences I've had was actually as a young manager. I think it was at the turn of the millennium. And I was part of this young leaders group, about 40 young leaders all over Asia. And what we had done within the company then was to actually form a community of young leaders. And the vision was, in 10 years, these young leaders would actually be the leaders in Asia for the company. What we did at that time was to really learn about life, not only to learn academic stuff from all the consultants that were teaching us, but equally just learn and experience life. So what was it? We went to the rural parts of Vietnam to learn how local Vietnamese families were actually coping in their lives. We went to Borneo and actually look at what's been happening with the environment. Again, this was the turn of the millennium, and the environment was not yet a very hot issue then. And we took a look at all the tribes that were actually being affected already by climate change. And again, at that time, at the turn of the millennium, it wasn't that significant. Or, being in New York, speaking to UNICEF and seeing what their programs could do for the developing world. That helped me build my own skills and expand my thinking, some of which I've actually used to also use at home.
It's great that I can look forward to having wine with Gina every night, if she's at home or if I'm at home, because I look forward to learning and listening to about her experiences, the world leaders she's met, the legendary professors that she's met, which I've also met. So it's good that the both of you are able to bring something deep, interesting to the table. It becomes an even greater experience for both of you.
In fact, that's one of the things, again, related to values that really bring us together. In fact, this sort of common desire to learn. And what I learn, I would then share with Noel, and what Noel learns, and he himself has gone to so many leadership experiences and gone to higher learning institutions to basically also teach me. And again, in different situations, you can find whatever that means for each partnership. But for us, because we share the same values, we're then able to have the same conversations, which are truly enjoyable, and in fact, enrich each other with those conversations. So I think it's been a fantastic experience, and particularly in terms of, I think, our passion for sustainability and impact to the world. And I think that's something that we jointly look forward to when we have those conversations.
Normally, there's a very basic sort of advice, which is basically you have to eat right, get physical activity, you need rest and recovery. And of course, just because you're married, you don't need to stop being attractive for each other.
Whatever. Okay. So, yeah, I think on that note, we can move to the fourth learning I think we've had, which is about looking beyond the two of you. And I think whilst we're discussing, the partnership that Noel and I have, I think, to be honest, there's a lot about our relationship, a product of the people around us, and therefore, we as two individuals can't stand just by ourselves, but in fact we draw our energy from those people around us. Take, for instance, I guess our family.
I think the real wealth is really the measure of the relationship around you. The kids, of course, we truly value and cherish our relationship with our kids. The conversations around the table, the conversations we have when we travel. We were just in Australia last week, And instead of taking a cab, we actually walked from the harbor to the hotel, which is a good 45-minute walk. But in that walk, there was so much we actually learned from each other every day, and in every walk. I remember in New York, my 7-year-old son actually had some extra shopping money, because boys don't shop, women shop, okay? And he had extra money, and he said, "Daddy, what do I do with this?" And I said, "Why don't you invest it in Unilever? Why don't you buy some stocks?" And the whole point is it's good that we're able to share our world with them. It teaches them financial quotient, teaches them how to invest. And a few years down the road, he said, "How much is my money?" I think it's about triple. So it was prior to the crisis, and I gave it back to him. But the whole point is, at 7 years old, he not only appreciates your world, he actually learns about investment, he learns about business. Your parents, your friends are very important. The support system allows you to actually do what you're doing. It actually fires you up in terms of achieving what it is that you want to achieve.
Yeah, in fact, to build on that, and family is just really so important. I guess for, again, many of us busy women around the room, we're just so busy, handling work and our businesses, as well as, really having a family. But I think what really matters the most is not the amount of time you spend, but really the quality of the conversations. And Noel was talking about the walks that we've had. And it just really pays that to have that relationship and that connection with your children. So for me, for instance, I could go shopping with my eldest, and that's the time that I think, we bond together. Yes, girls do go shopping. And I have a secret bag to keep my secret stash. So also I could, sort of go and sometimes take trips with my 17-year-old, where we do have quiet time together, and it's great because, being a mom and being with a 17-year-old boy, normally you're not able to have discussions, but actually I think in those quiet moments that we're together, I realize how much he's grown up and how intelligent he is. Or for instance, just even spending Sundays watching football with our 10-year-old and really having the moment where, he might score 3 goals and just really be overjoyed. He always looks at the bleachers to check where we are. And that to me is really special. And that to me, the look of our son, now 10 years old, and then looking back, is something really quite special that, to be honest, is the draw for us to make sure that we maintain that balance. And balance isn't really easy for many of us. And I think that's a concept that has come into the industry over maybe 10 years now, is this whole concept of agile. And that's really an important thing, especially for people in the corporate world. In the end, we are measured on output, and that's the important thing. It's not the number of hours that you get to clock in. I've been able to do what I've been able to do, not because of the number of hours that I clock in, but indeed just with a sheer focus for the results. And it doesn't matter whether at a PTA conference at 2 p.m. or I have to watch, my daughter or my son perform at like 10 a.m. Doesn't matter. So long as I make the output, then I could still be an effective leader, as I've had, I think, over the past years. And I think we as women, especially as we rise in the organization, have that responsibility to really create that path. I remember when I was younger in the 20s, a lot of the role models were, and you had to really...
Not so old.
Okay, yeah, I'm not so old, but competing in the men's world, it's like you had to really sort of compete and be different, and in a way act like men. But now, a lot of young people who work with me and some of the young directors, they feel like it's absolutely fine, and it's because we've paved the way to really create that environment where you can be a woman, you can balance. And indeed, I personally measure myself in terms of how much time they are having at home. Literally, we turn off the lights in the office to make sure that people actually go home by 6:30 p.m.
I just wanted to touch on work-life balance. And I've said it I had a speech in Harvard, and I said, I don't believe that your life is so small that you can balance it with your work. why I don't believe in work-life balance. It doesn't exist for me. I think the whole concept for me is that you are the spoke of your universe. That's you in the middle. Within the spoke, there are a few arrows going to and fro, meaning arrows going to the spoke, meaning you're taking, and there are arrows going up, meaning you're giving. And those different arrows represent your different relationships. You're a father or a mother. You're a sister or a brother. You're a son or a daughter. You're a friend. And all those spokes, as they go into the center, that means you learn from it. You're actually saying is, what is your universe? What do you bring to the party? And what are you going to take out of this? Okay. Speaking of relationships, there's just one thing I need to say, because we wouldn't have been able to do what we were doing if not for the support staff that we have. And it's important to treat the support staff in the best way possible and develop them to be better human beings as you would a colleague at work. Once our staff was going to Malaysia and there was something wrong with the visa and she had to be detained in the area where drug lords, all these lowlifes were detained. And that hurt us so much. That's why we had a party with foreign visitors and we said, we need to go because I need to fix that in the airport. Pick her up in the airport, fix the papers, make her feel good. The whole point is, and my Malaysian secretary would ask, who's the maid here? Are you the maid or is she the maid? Then you realize how people actually see things. That because she's a maid, let her fix it. The whole point is that you care for people because in the end, they care for you. And if they care for you, your kids, your home, wherever it is in the world, because they've been with us all over the world, you'll be able to do what you want to do because you've cared for those people. And it goes beyond just the two of you.
Yep.
Okay? And by the way, one advice, allow your husbands a Friday night with his best friend. That would be good. Yeah. That's a relationship.
Yeah, well, I know, but actually that's quite true. I have a number of friends who say, oh, I have to ask permission from my wife to go out. And I'm like, really? I mean, seriously, because again, you have to maintain your individuality when you're together. And for me, Noel as an individual and myself as an individual, I can also go out on Friday night, but it's I think that kind of situation where it's just the mutual respect for each other and equally trust. I'm not one of those wives who check on the phones and everything. I mean, seriously, I don't check, because literally you just have to trust each other and make sure that you yourselves bring each other into that relationship. I think we'll go to the last learning, which is I think on being each other's harshest critic. I think usually you tend to expect that, when you say you have a partnership, you actually have to be supportive of each other. I think what we found, and again, in the kind of situation that we're in, usually it's not often that you get very harsh criticism.
But we can't guarantee that the partner will not take it very badly, okay?
So I think if you really care for your partner enough, if you really care about your partner enough, you have to be courageous enough to actually step forward and say things, not being critical. And again, for men, they don't like to look at the little things. But if there's something really big that you feel that your partner can really benefit from the feedback, just go ahead and take it in partnerships. I think it takes a certain level of maturity to both give the feedback in a constructive way and also to take feedback. And I think what's helped for us is that, again, in the corporate environment, if you're trained to see that and receive that with colleagues that we work for and we work with, equally, why wouldn't you do that to the person that means to you the most?
Of course, it goes without saying that in the end, you also have to be your partner's greatest supporter. Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. Yeah. So why don't I just recap? So I think, again, we don't claim to be experts in this field. I think it is pretty much just sharing our own experiences of what we've learned throughout our journey together. Definitely that life is a work in progress. We're always keeping at it, and we are working at it every single day. Definitely not perfect, but something that everybody has to work on. There is only one driver, where in any given situation, there's one decision maker for the couple. Be super individuals and invest in each of your individual selves, because it's the best gift that you can actually give each other. Look beyond the two of you, because no two people are an island, and indeed, it's very enriching to have others enrich your partnership and your marriage. And of course, I think it is about being each other's best critic or harshest critic.
I don't like your blouse. Okay, in ending, I gave a talk in Jollibee, and there was a question that was from the right field. I wasn't prepared to answer because I was trying to be modest. They asked, what's the secret to success? And it's not as if I knew really what the formula to success was. So I gave 3 answers, basically. The first is, do what you love to do. The second is, develop social skills. When I say social skills, I don't mean be social. It's the ability to deal with people effectively. And the third one, which the women in the room loved, and they were writing down notes, and they asked me after the talk, was marry well. When I say marry well, I don't mean marry rich. Marry the person that's going to make you a much better person than you are when you're single. Thank you very much.